Okay. Anyways, so after all the thanks and all the collaboration, I'm going to give a quick introduction. I'm going to go through what I've done every year is just how things have progressed and follow the progress of the project. I'm David Byrne. I'm Texas A&M University. If you want to get in contact with me, tools for polyploids at tamu.edu is a great way to do so. Again, the three objectives of the project, things we've been working on for 4 years. We've done a lot of work on the developing computational tools and we have great partners, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Texas A&M, Wageningen, and food and plant and food research. And a lot of breeders that are actually testing and giving feedback to software developers. So we have a good interaction here to make the software really work for the breeders. And of course, this part is objective 3 is a training. So we've done, this is our 4th training project. We've had also a training workshop in New Zealand last year. And we, before this, and I'll talk briefly about it, we do have computational sessions where we give sort of updates on things as well for quick summaries. So who is the polyploid community? Well, you know, I started trying to figure out this when we first started, and it really hasn't changed very much. It's been pretty consistent throughout the project. Most of our participants are 20s and 30s, much younger than I, which is good because they're the up and coming breeders and scientists that are going to be using this software. Look between private and public breeding. Private, 20 to 25% of our participants are from private breeding companies, 35 to 40% from public breeding programs, and the rest are students and postdocs. So again, up and coming. So we'll see a lot of this. I think I did it. Okay. Anyway, and where the people are coming from for this project, again, about 50% from the US and the rest from other places. Now, when I first started this project, I figured it'd be a US-based project with a couple international collaborators. And we weren't thinking of doing internet connections. Of course, that when COVID came in, we were forced to do internet. And so we have continued, and it's been very useful because right now we have about 50 people signed up for in-person, about 100 or so online as well. So we have quite a few people participating. The expertise, of course, as you would expect, a lot from the breeding and genetics field, 40 to 45%. And then, of course, very strong in the computational genetics and molecular genetics. And I use these terms very broadly, just so you know. So some people say, I'm a statistician. Well, you're a computational geneticist as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, there's a lot of subtleties, but I have to use big categories in these types of slides. Pathology, entomology, plant physiology, and of course, plant breeders are known for working with a wide range of people to advance their breeding objectives. Again, it's been about the same throughout. The major crops represented are the root and tuber crops, of course, potato, sweet potato, yam, fruit crops, mainly small fruit, but some of the others as well. Grass, turf grass, sugarcane, a few other things. Ornamentals, roses, chrysanthemums, and a few others. Vegetables and cereals that came in later. I hadn't really thought about that when we put this together. But there's a lot of different crops involved. And again, the major ploidy level is tetraploid. And you see a lot of diploids too, mainly because if you're working with polyploids, you generally work with regenerative species as well. So you're working some on diploid level, usually working across various ploidy levels. And so, but again, among the higher ploidies, tetraploid is the major one. Of course, substantial hexaploid, octoploid, and a few other higher ploidy levels. And so all the software that we're developing is hopefully be adaptable to a range of ploidy levels. And it just happens to work very well on the diploid level as well for these these outcrossing heterozygous plants. So who uses this software? Well, I do ask that question, how familiar people are with the software. And this is just a range of software that we've been looking at. I can see the trend is more and more familiarity as we go on, which is what we hope. And that's what we're getting. If you look a little more in detail, this would be the genotype calling software. And just looking at the first three, which we've had since the beginning, you can see in 2021, only 10% on average were familiar with the software. And now in 2024, we're up to 25%. So that's an increase. Of course, a lot of times, people who use this software don't pay attention to this part because that's done by somebody else. And then you concentrate on the mapping, QTL, and genomic selection type software. Okay. And you can see again, generally there's been an increase in usage. Again, looking at the top, we started with about 12% familiarity. Now we're up to 46%. So we've made great strides in just familiarity of the software and people beginning to use it. But have people been using it? Well, that's the next question I always ask. And yeah, they have. If you look at the never, this is used for parental selection. You can see on the never, it's gone down from about 35 to about 15%. And then you go on the other side where it's 50% or most of the time, going from 25 to about 40%, and always from about 10 to 20%. So again, a substantial increase in usage for parental selection. You see a substantial increase in usage for seedling selection, the same sort of trend. And even finally, oops, not what I wanted to do. And then you get to genomic selection. Now with genomic selection, we started with 55% saying they were never or have never used it. And now we're down to about 25%. And so that's, things are being pushed to sometimes 50% or most or always. You see from always, it started about 7, now it's almost up to 20%. So again, a lot of movement towards use of molecular markers for all three types of activities. Now I want to thank all the people who participate in the computational sessions. Now these are sessions held in December. There's 3 sessions online. And what we did this time, which I think worked really well, we gave, we being the other people, not myself, gave short summaries of the software, and then opened it up for questions. And so the first and December 5th, they're about 2-hour sessions. Genotyping call tools. So Chris and Alejandro talked about the various tools that they use to call genotypes. And then the mapping tools, the map poly and the poly map R, Jekin and Peter talked about. And so it turned out really well. It was well organized, and a lot of that was, Chris was helping me organize this, so she did a great job. And then on December 12th, we looked at QTL analysis. And so we had Maria talking about GWAS poly and DF QTL, Gabrielle QTL poly, poly QTLR by Peter, and MP QTL by Alejandro. So we got a lot of help getting all this stuff presented. And then finally, on December 19th, right before Christmas break, we had our final session and dealt with genomic selection. And we had Paul and Gonzalo from University of Florida present that about stage-wise visualization tools, the View Poly tool to sort of put all this information together and look at it. Chris talked about her program, and she'll talk a little more about it today. And Heidekan, Olivia came on and talked about her program. And then haplotyping from sequencing data, Tim talked about. So we had a great time. About 50 people participated in all 3 sessions. So I thought it was really very useful. Now today, just quickly the agenda, because I only have like 30 seconds left. Of course, I give the introduction and we'll go through this. We'll do a resource, talk a little about the website. Chris will talk about Read's map and look at triploid mapping and non-additive QTLs. Marcelo and Gabrielle, Guillermo, G and Xiaobang will talk about map poly 2 and improve QTL. Chris again will come and talk about poly. And then Chris again with Jekin. I guess Jekin might join you. At least he'll look at the chat. Talk about the employed and unemployed determination. And then finally, Marcelo will come on and talk about what's next. He's been working on the next project. I mean, he's contacted a lot of you, I'm sure, and put together a pre-proposal. And so he'll talk about the progress there. And then we'll have user presentations interspersed. Since I don't have time, you can just read that real quick. You'll see them later. And then poster presentations. Now, if you haven't set up your poster during the first break, please set it up. Now, we have 10 posters, so I didn't assign time slots. So we have poster session today at 4 o'clock, as well as tomorrow at 4 o'clock to be able to talk to the people at the various posters and learn about what they're doing. A lot of interesting things going on across the country, across the world with polyploid genetics and analysis. And the second day, since we don't have time, I'm going to just go through this or not go through it, and we'll do it tomorrow. And again, we'll have user presentations and again, poster presentations that day as well. And so that's all I wanted to say. Now, our first talk is Delaney. You're going to talk about the website a little?